notorious for his delightful shadow puppetry, and he has
marionettes actually.
marionettes. My bad. For his marionette puppetry, and he has rejuvenated the legendary British figure of Jack the Giant Killer through his poetry. You may introduce yourself as well.
Do you need? Can you hear me without the mic? Because this mic doesn't seem to actually work. Okay, I'll just do it that. Well, it seems like we've all got about 10 minutes, right? Because it's an hour for 6 people. All right, so I'll just start right in. So as Starry intimated, I am a devotee of the folkloric figure of Jack, and he figures in a lot of my writing. So I'll start with a humorous ballad about a Jack named Jack Keeper. This is the ballad of stingy Jack Keeper, always a step ahead of the reaper. The further he swam, he sank a bit deeper. Hear ye the wages of poor old Jack Keeper. He hoarded his gold in a tattered silk bag, his shoes shot with holes, his shirt a torn rag. The floors of his house had carpets of dust. He served his few guests a handful of crust. Jack watered his wine, he skimped on his tea. Not sugar or milk could anyone see. Pinching all of his pennies to slag, he had for a wife a doddering hag. To save himself ink, Jack wrote with his blood. To spill a small cup to Jack was a flood. Drinking, of course, he did very little. His skin was quite dry, his bones very brittle. No children at all did run through Jack's house. So cold was inside, it kept not a mouse. No embers of wood on the fireplace burned, and under the covers the missus was spurned. No horses were groomed inside of Jack's stable. The dogs were long dead from begging at table. The cats had all fled to chase other mice. The only thing living, perhaps, were some lice. Bare bones for a body, a skull for a head. The plague struck at last, Jack Keeper was dead. Nobody wept or dug him a grave. No death knell was rung for his soul to be saved. To wander the earth shall be Jack's black fate, looking for food, his hunger to seek. So more recently, I'm mostly known for writing ballads, but more recently I've become interested in alliterative poetry, which is the kind of poetry that was written before the Norman conquest, like Beowulf, or the Norse Eddas were also written in alliterative poetry. It has very complicated rules, which I won't try to explain, but basically words, rather than rhyming, the beginning sounds of words repeat, which it has to follow particular rules. But anyway, I wrote another poem about Jack, which the name did not exist in Old English, so I came up with sort of a Old English cognate, spelled G-E-A-C. It's pronounced Yak, and it actually was a name in Old English, I found out. So, and it means cuckoo. So I made an Old English version of Jack-o'-lantern called Yak of the Lantern. Full the moon was, and fallen the leaves, when Yak wandered to yon tavern, a dark dwelling and doom-laden. The smoky air smote his eyeballs, a fire flickered, fable-making, shifting shadows, shaping puppets on wormy walls, the wood quarry. There Scratch saw him and scampered over, eager to haggle with an Etin slayer. Sickened by slaughter and seas of blood, the imp offered an eldritch bargain, a boon in trade to bondage, for bondage to hell. Tricksome Jack was, tangle weaving, for beer thirsty, he brewed mischief, hoodwinking the hob for a horn of ale, and grinned widely. The gift he asked that Scratch alter his scale and become a shiny sheet to show the alewife, a coin Yak then kept in his pocket, baffling the boggle with blessed silver. Unhead me now, howled the puka. No trouble make me for 20 years, and I'll loose my hold, you lackwit scratling, answered the rascal, the offer taken. Fast the years were to find the pair in an old orchard of apple trees, the elf crowing over his triumph. Slyly Yak sought a kindness, an apple to sate his irksome hunger. So Scratch scrambled to scale a tree where Yak trapped him, yowling and cursing, with silver crosses, sacred wardlings laid in a circle along the trunk, and bade him break their bargain's terms. Hell must not hold this handsome break. Scratch succumbed to abscond freely. His time ended, the trickster roamed, heavy-hearted to heaven's gate. The watchman made a witless slander, and cast him down, cold and wretched. To hell Yak went, haven-seeking. At the gate gloated a gleeful Scratch. Hell cannot hold you, nor heaven keep. Damned to darkness, by death forsaken, wandering weary, your weird ended. Hellfire to guide, held in the lantern, a corpse candle to curse the fen, a wispy spark bewitching to see, fools who follow, fated to ruin. Alright, and this being the H.P. Lovecraft film festival, the Necronomicon, I have to read the rhyme of the Eldritch Mariner.
Oh yes, you do.
Which is something of it's a unholy marriage of the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner and the Call of Cthulhu. The greatest mercy in the world, I think, is we are blind to contents that lie tightly furled, asleep within the mind. Well, it was at a wedding feast where I was next of kin, a host of fishy relatives the church had just gone in. When did a staring lunatic upon me lay a hand, his beard grew like a prickly thorn, his face in tropics tanned. It was an eldritch mariner made hoary in short years, for he had seen with his own eyes what lurks in darkest fears. That is not dead, he raved to me, which can eternal lie, and eon strangeness may one day cause even death to die. It started with a raven that had roosted on the mast. I tried to disregard its cause, which drove me mad at last. We sailed in fetid southern seas, in waters thick as ooze. The constellations alien, our constellation blues. 'Twas on a drunken, sleepless night that I took up my gun to shoot the raven through the heart, and so the deal was done. Mayhap it was grim Odin's bird that recklessly I slain, and it was then the ocean groaned as if it were in pain. The latitude and longitude I'll carry to my tomb, for it was there a city rose where sleeps our race's doom. My crewmates' faces turned pale white, just like that maiden death, who kisses you with blood-red lips and steals your final breath. We lit upon the island's shore of slime-slick stones and mud, and staggered through a ruin that gushed terrors in a flood. Across the Titan masonry, we crawled like tiny ants, and what we saw there made us know the solace Nician spreads. Vast horrors lay beneath those stones, of that there was no doubt. Their angles joined impossibly to Euclid's theorem's flout. We crossed the courtyard in a daze, a monstrous marketplace. With revelations, there we saw our minds could not keep pace. It was the Portuguese who climbed that demoniac stair to call us in a hoarsened voice with wild, disheveled hair. A cyclops door to hellish depths before us towered high. To call our actions reasonable would be to tell a lie. Without result, we pushed the door until the answer dawned. It hinged on a diagonal, and like a maw it yawned. The aperture was raven black, and spewed out horrid things, which long had been imprisoned there, and flew on filmy wings. The odor was unbearable. We heard a slopping sound, and something lumbered towards the door from far beneath the ground. Cthulhu now was loose again, and ravened for delight. Asleep a vigintillion years, repulsive was the sight. For now the stars were right again, a mountain stumbled blind, a sticky star-spawned bat-winged god before us did we find. And what an age-old cult had failed by artifice to do, accomplished then by accident a random foolish crew. Its flabby claws swept up three men before they even turned, God rest their souls if there be rest, and not from heaven's spurn. We plunged in terror over rocks whose angles most perplexed, and in the end but two survived to witness what came next. My mate and I fled in the ship as fast as she could steam. The creature cursed us from the shore, just like the Polypheme. The thing was bold and could not and would not stop. It slid into the sea. The churning claimed my crewmate's mind, and soon a corpse was he. A desperate gamble I took then, and so reversed my course, to speed towards the noxious thing and strike with lethal force. Relentlessly I drove the bow through jelly foul and green, which burst and smelt of open graves, abhorrently unclean. I heard a seething sound astern, the sky spawn recombined, but then our distance widened fast before I lost my mind. And so I told my loathsome tale in hopes my soul to shrive, and yet I fear I will be cursed as long as I'm alive. Water, water everywhere, Cthulhu dreams below. Laureate, Wagad, Nagal, Fatan, this blasphemy I know. The wedding guest then turned away, made mad from what he'd learned, and like the eldritch mariner, his soul now heaven spurned. Thank you.
I love that one. Okay, next up we have the handsome, the decadent, the transgressive, Mr. Philly Martin himself. Poppy Z. Bright is a longtime pen name of Philly Martin. Since beginning his career in the small press magazine The Horror Show in 1985, he has published 8 novels, including Lost Souls, Exquisite Corpse, and the Liquor series, as well as 7 short story collections and assorted nonfiction work. In addition to writing, he runs the online curio shop, Busy Baubles, New Orleans. We've got some really cute stuff there. Last time I looked anyway. Specializing in vintage tarot cards, quirky jewelry, religious objects, and more. He lives in New Orleans with his husband, the artist Ray Cross, and the cats.
Can I borrow that book?
What do you need to borrow?
Can I borrow that book? I was
Yeah,
going
you
to read,
certainly may.
I'm going to read a couple of short poems, and one of them I neglected to bring my own copy of, but it is reprinted in here.
Handy.
It's called Contract. If you dangle a hand over the edge of the bed, you enter into an agreement with the thing that lives underneath. It is then contractually obligated to your wrist with dry talons and squeeze until the bones crack. Then custom dictates that you try to scream, but cannot find the air to even squeak. There will be no rescue, as per your contract. My husband Gray is from Martha's Vineyard. We were at Necon last summer and went to the vineyard afterward, and I kind of fell in love with the place. I wrote this after we got back from our road trip, and I couldn't find my favorite pair of loafers for the longest time. They had gotten shoved way under the passenger seat in our van. This is called Illumination Night for Gray. The shoes are lost forever. The stronger man can no longer lift the bags they carried over past the eastern seaboard. The weaker man goes shoeless. Their eyes are dim, their gaits absurd, they do not touch. There was an island, one man says, and days to linger there. We held each moment by the stem and savored its ephemerality. With you I shared a thing worth more, the other says, than working legs, then broken backs, then the mate to one brown loafer. We will be the sunrise over Buzzard's Bay, the little colored cottages, the singer at the tabernacle. We'll be, We will need neither shoes nor flesh. If I arrive there first, I'll wait for you. You are the candle to my lantern, my illumination in the night. Okay, I got through that without actually crying. That's all the poems I've ever written. I haven't been writing for very long. Thank you very much.
They were lovely. Thank you. Next up is our poet laureate.
Already?
Already, let's see what it says about Brendan O'Brien. Is a writer, performance poet, teaching artist, and game designer from Trinidad and Tobago. His work has been shortlisted for the 2014 and 2015 Small Acts Literary Competition and the 2020 Ignite Award for the Best in Speculative Poetry. It is published in Canny Magazine. His debut poetry collection, New Sign My Tentacle, available from Interstellar Flight Press, is the winner of the 2022 Elgin Award. Mr. Brendan O'Brien.
My spoken word heart insists that when a standing mic is present, I should at least be inclined to use it. But since this is not very strong, I'm just going to have it face in my direction as an homage to that experience. Before I got here, I decided I was going to go out for lunch to see what's the spiciest thing I could get in Rhode Island. Suffice it to say that I was not very successful. In the spirit of that not being successful, I will read a poem that I wrote ages and ages ago at the behest of our good friends CSE comedian Carlos Hernandez. The name of this poem is What I Say to the Upper Order Life Forms That Have Come to Rescue Us When They Ask Us About Pepper X.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we get to chat in this particular way. You having a childish curiosity that can only be fed with a poetic authority. The acceptance that only a lyrical wisdom can bridge the gap between our meat and your majesty. We are a diverging path of coarse sense from your own mistakes, so I can only describe them the way our earth demands, visiting stern fact colorfully as if it were material metaphor. Okay, take that one thing you asked about the other day. That fruit in the nightshade family you saw a photo of outside the grocery store. The one my companion said looked like digging a fresh corpse out of the ground, rehydrating it until it burst, and then letting it dry out again until it collapsed on itself in dark decay. Right, yes, that one. We call it Pepper X. Yes, we have already spoken about how we add X to things that we should avoid. We cross things out. We label them our pasts or our extremes or our final options. Yes, we are strange like this. We love it when we can look an artifact of time in the eye and know that it is reckless. But this is also kind of different. I'm not sure if you have any natural occurring 8-methyl and vanillyl 6-nonamide fruits on your planet, but here we have a unique brand of flora that... Okay, let me start over in fact. Have you ever been stabbed? Have you ever worried that you were about to be stabbed? You know, have you ever looked over your shoulder and saw someone you did not recognize looking you sternly in the eyes and wondering if tonight, if there was the night you could be stung in the chest by steel and never recover? No? Okay. Alright, here's one. Have you ever been in love before? You know, a love so strong that it felt like drowning in rum, like being shocked in the gut, like being eaten alive by butterflies? No? Okay, let me clarify. 8-methyl and vanillyl 6-nonamide is technically a neurotoxin. Some fruits bear it with the deliberate intention of avoiding consumption. It's one of those obvious evolutionary mechanisms whereby a thing becomes its least appetizing self in order to avoid predators. In response, a specific class of mammalian, known as Homo sapiens sapiens, evolved its own evolutionary mechanism, becoming masochists. Pepper X is the latest in a long line of the perpetuated symbiosis of sex. A cultivar so strong in the amide chain that its inventor admitted on TV that it caused him to have cramps for an hour and pass out in the rain outside his front door. Its capsaicin density is measured in units so meaningless in both their quality and value that the difference between it and its immediate inferior is like the difference between being beheaded by a guillotine or by a very sharp butcher's cleaver. And yet when I tell you that the pain is the goal, I mean it in the most romantic way I can imagine. This is what I mean by metaphor. There is a food stand back home where I tell the old lady in the kitchen behind the counter in my softest and most gleeful voice that I would love for her to kill me, and then she hands me a brown paper bag and I eat its contents, weeping and cursing God. And that experience is my greatest joy. This is what I mean by metaphor. There's this dude named Sean Evans, and he invites some of the world's most popular celebrities to share a meal with him, but every meal is poisoned. And they're poisoned because as each musician, each movie star, each magnanimous force of nature starts dry heaving and groaning in reverb, they also allegedly confess the truest shadows of themselves. This is what I mean by metaphor. One time, that same dude was interviewing Taraji P. Henson, and she revealed she had a loophole. She just asked her West Indian bodyguard to eat for her. This is what I mean by metaphor. When a thing is exotic, it is spicy. When a thing is scandalous, it is spicy. When a thing is risque, it is spicy. This is what I mean by metaphor. Hold any pepper upside down in the light, and even the most deformed of the hottest ones will vaguely resemble flickering flame. We say pain is how we know our body is both alive and on the edge of beyond life. A high steeped in stimulating endorphins by stimulating everything else. Heartbreak stings so harsh as this that it can only be appeased by ice cream. Desire warms as crimson as this that it is the shade of unbidden lust. Bravery holds as long as this that people make a challenge of holding its raging line. This is what I mean by metaphor. Pepper X is like the first time you fell out of a tree. Pepper X is like going out for drinks the night before your first day at work. Pepper X is like accidentally forgetting your jacket at the office on an evening that drops to 11 Celsius. Pepper X is like the look your partner's parents give you the first time you meet them for dinner. Pepper X is the sliver of seconds between trying out a new dish and discovering you hate it. Pepper X is your child telling you they hate you in a fit of rage. Pepper X is your child apologizing to you just when you've realized that you were the one in the wrong all along. Pepper X is like missing a grip while cutting tomatoes. Pepper X is like your ex asking you over for coffee. Pepper X is like the morning after your ex asks you over for coffee. Pepper X is going bungee jumping for the first time. Pepper X is confessing your love just before it's too late. There is no truer sign that God is real, realer even than you. That at any time I can decide to put stinging nettles in my mouth and rejoice that my tongue can sense them, and see in it this physical reminder of all that would hurt more than flesh would let it. And you would look at all of time up to today and dare to ask me about our wretched history. But human, why so much suffering? And I will answer patiently. Look around, dog. Wouldn't you rather that we could some way take all of that suffering and put all of it away deep inside us instead of everywhere else? So this is my book, Can You Stand My Tentacle? And this is me, a black person that is not from the United States. So obviously people ask me a lot, why did you write a book with a lot of Lovecraft in it? And I've discovered only after writing the book that the answer to that question is the poem that I'm about to read, the title of which is Kanye West's internet bodyguard asks Haster to put away the phone. Damn, this thing just loves to find something that means something so it can swallow it in swirling jaws and erase it all. He was just walking down a Twitter feed late one night, looking ironically for a hamburger, and he met the mess rushing upward on the sidewalk, swearing across the cold while some other VIP walks away chuckling. He takes out his phone to catch Yay in the entire internet. He spins a slick caption underneath to snare a couple likes as they crawl upwards. Pastor shouts, "World Star!" out of sight, a gleeful judgment sound, lucky no one will hear until it fades into the midnight. The whole block puts a part in their mouths, laughs their little laughs with their mouths full. Oh, he's so crazy. When I see it, I remember nearly passing out of my own desire to disappear. I remember the sidewalk of my own timeline rising up to meet my nose and strangers kneeling to ask me if I was dizzy, bringing tepid water, wiping my bloody forehead. I wonder if Ye brought any friends with him to the club. I wonder why no one's taken Ye to bed. I wonder why no one's taken Haster's phone. I wonder why the street is always so full when World Star and always so empty when World Weary. The video stops trending eventually. Maybe we'll think about it so we can redirect our judgment, feel better right after feeling bad. But the video never comes down. And that's a lot of 10 minutes already, so let's just keep it short.
Sumiko, I believe you are next.
Do you have my book?
Hmm?
Do you have my book? Because I give you my bio.
I do. It's in here?
It's on the back.
Awesome.
Somewhere else, but it's on there.
Sumiko Saulson is a Bram Stoker and Ultra-nominated poet and award-winning author of Afro-surrealist and multicultural sci-fi and horror. Author of The Rat King, a book of dark poetry, Dookie Zines, Within Me, Without Me, Dookie Zines, and Happiness and Other Diseases, Mocha Memoirs Press. Afro-Surrealist Writers Award 2018. And they're also lovely to be on the panels with, incidentally.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so this is called a mercurial creature. Y'all can hear me just fine, right? A deep-seated growling, a threatening purr, haunches rise under hackles of electric fur. I, in servitude, offer flesh in a bowl. Vigorously I stroke you, pet names I extol. Hissing and crouching, your tail growing stiff, you complain as you paw at the feast in your dish. I see the disdain as I look in your eye, and remember your kind might eat me when I die. I run and fetch your favorite toy, a string, tipped with a bell and a gray mouse-shaped ball. For a moment you engage, but soon tire of it all. Your fury is adorable, as you're so small. If you dispel, you grow larger. The tables you turn, I pay for this bowl of cold food you have spurned. We worshipped you in temples, you haven't forgotten. You're tired over and under achieving because you left me without a sound, without a word, without a voice, because you left me without leaving. When assonance becomes dissonance, cognitive or otherwise, gears spinning endlessly in broken minds, I fear the gear shift. I hear the sound slip. Time is broken. It cannot be fixed. This is not merely a trick of shadow and light. It is fight or flight denied. Revisionist shadows of a past unchanged because you left me without leaving. Children don't become our parents. The shadows we cast are small. Dreams we had. Okay, sorry, that's a different one. This isn't a trick of light or sound because you left me without leaving. You are cast in my DNA, a fixture in my mitochondria, every memory in my mirror, every line, every wrinkle, every change. I look more like you every day. I found my voice. I sound like you. I walk the earth, and you're two immortals, deathless in death, zombies and ghosts. You haunt all my corners and die, watch you leave cobwebs, a lifetime spent grieving, where you left without leaving. And I wrote that about my parents on Mother's Day, so it's a lot about my mother. The dormouse is dreaming. Dark clouds settled around the handsome home. Frightened children ran up to their rooms. Grandma barked out commands to the older ones. Her shaky vibrato rumbling with authority. Lock the windows. Close the doors. Set the sugar bowl out in the foyer. The dormouse peeked out from under the sugar bowl lid, where his dreamer's gear was entirely hid. Blankets and pillows uncovered with down. Then he pulled his lid over and gave way to dreaming. Over the garden, the mighty clouds wept, while in the dream house, the dormouse slept, building worlds with his tiny mind on hand-knit doilies and sleepy crying. Little minds are quietly steaming in the hidden world of sleep. You can't erase the dormouse dreaming of worlds and concepts thimble deep. Grandma locks up her cupboards tight and grips her cane with knuckles white. Prevent beating incursions of deeper meaning. Dormouse, keep us safe tonight in shallow waters puddle wide, safe from the full moon's pull of tide. Face snuggled in his soft fur hide. I do have time for more, so that's
Oh, good.
Jack Frost in summer. Feelings are delicate things. You can catch them in your hand like a butterfly. Feelings are fleeting and lovely. They can melt on your fingertips as snowflakes in winter. You flow through me. I am air. I am water. I am sound. In your arms I melt in springtime. You hold me in sunlight and I burn. My emotions are bought and sold. King Midas turns my heart to gold. Your bright and shining eyes to coal. I phoenix burn, engulf my soul. I am Jack Frost in winter. I melt in your arms, seducing me cruelly with all your charms. My eros, my lover, my psyche, my frame, my infinite being who hasn't a name. You fill me like air, like water, like sound. Our love, our lust, our heat abound. You create me a lover who hasn't a name. You remake me until we are one and the same. I am reborn, a phoenix of flesh. I push through your skin and unburden my chest. I have given you all of me, a little at a time. All that is me, I have given to you. Take my eyes black as coal, my warm summer coat, to have and to hold. Keep me safe in your bed, locked away in your head. I wish I could say that everything, but I actually have 2 more minutes.
Yes,
Take
use
all
all
my
the 10
minutes.
minutes.
Using all of my minutes. And these are in Melancholia, a book of dark poetry, which is out on Pleasant Prose Press, which is women and LGBTQ only. Please buy it for me. Syndrome of the Imposter. The Earl King arrived in the carriage one night. Adelaide a door found. She was replaced underground. The Pavinci Four also fell through a door, and when they grew up, they could go there no more. She sang, the Earl King, all 4 operatic parts, having mastered her craft of the vocabular arts. Frightened child, father unaware, omniscient, alto of the distant narrator. A seductive voice orchestrates everything to the twisted machinations of the fairy king. It was inescapable, it seems, that as innocent children, we were replaced by changelings. Our parents never noticed. As for how sullen we became, they blamed it on our hormones. And the conspiracy of change cloaked us all, imposters. A gremlin where I used to be sat loathsome in my room, cramming composition books full of poetry and adolescent clouds of gloom. Tragedy brings out the poet in me. I've always had a telltale heart, and I think it was nice knowing me as my seams start to fall apart. Pills were given to adjust my brain chemistry to bring good old Jekyll back from the hive. My emotions surely made a monster of me, sporting fetid wounds on the inside, obsessive scrawling in the gutters of utterly destroyed notebooks filled with no space left between the lines. The overfilled state of my poetry books, matching the overwrought state of my mind. Now I'm being congratulated, and I look sideways in the mirror. What I've written in flights of insanity must now face a jury of my peers. Will they somehow find out that the real me was lost in a sunken place, was stolen away by the Earl King, and a changeling now? There's my face. Thank you.
Next up, we have Ryan Talwara, a previous poet laureate for this convention, and a very, very fun guy to hang out with, and he's incredibly encouraging to other poetic talents. Take it away, Brian.
Well, and thank you everyone for being such a wonderful part of NecronomiCon Providence here in 2022. It's like I'm always honored to be able to join you out here. Can we get a round of applause for all the wonderful organizers, the hosts, our fellow speakers, our fellow participants who have made this just an absolutely wonderful experience. And so, I just came in from a 30-hour drive from Minneapolis, where we had completed the installation of the Laureate 50 exhibit at the Minneapolis Central Library, and which was made possible in no small part because of the journey that I made through speculative poetry, and more importantly through many works which touched on the works of H.P. Lovecraft, the writers of the weird and this tradition. And I point this out to all of you that no matter where you are in your life, how different you feel, perhaps how strange or unusual your experience is and your artistic call, I want you to know it's possible that it can lead to a way to change and transform worlds in the ways you want, maybe sometimes the ways you fear, and to just let yourself have that power with your creative writing, all right? But let's go ahead and start doing a couple of pieces from that process as a proof of concept. Of course, I leave the one notebook that I was going to read from first. Back up here, right? So let's see. Thank you. Ignore that. And so this first poem I'm going to share with you comes from the first page of the Martian Migraine anthology, Cthulhu Sakwa. It's called The Pearl in the Shadows. When the sage points at Relief, the madman stares at the tentacle. Once you understand the truths of a centerless cosmos, know you will be condemned to return in 1,000 forms. Some will pipe, some will scream, some will whisper and crawl. A few for the right reasons. Some will write a poem with something shaped like a man on a filthy morning, filled with the laughter of a finite. Some will find wisdom like a Velusian serpent in length. Others will remain fools, dreaming of their roots' invention, or the questionable tastings of a miskatonic mudbug. Those who dare to hope will fall asleep many times. Those who dare to wake will see something timeless. Yawp as you will among sacred worms and stumbling mountains, for you are but one grain in the multiverse. In our darkness, what a pearl you might become. No, your true name is a scroll in the book of the dead. Your ultimate fate, as certain as a well-read poet in a nameless bazaar, remembered and sought only for their most nonsensical scribbles. From my 2020 collection, where this book came out, it's technically during the 45th anniversary of the Lao diaspora, but it turned out that 2020 was a very unusual year to release a book out there. Anyone want to buy a book? No. Anyway, but let's read a couple of poems from that give some context. Narrative of a Naga's heirs. Never read my life as the diary of some sad refugee. My account is not intended as a routine narrative of adversity overcome, mere survival once again transcending a descent to white-hot hell, converted to the placid limbo of frogs. No, I miss the familiar strange here in a way you cannot fathom. Our hard ghosts remain vigilant, thin as an inked scratch on an old palm leaf, haunting with a tongue claimed incomprehensible. The old signposts have been lost, but in strangeness, possibility. I hope, moving, a shadow in uncertain passages, making melodies for newsless souls. In daring this, might I shape some limitless star? We, scrambling to replace what we barely knew, barely recognize our tangled metamorphosis, our hymns of recovery, organs of uncertain purpose in the body cosmic, mistaken easily for endings, not new beginnings. The king of the Nagas goes to the west, something for the year of the dragon. I have known eons among celestials the way you have known a second. I have stretched from the reigns of Draco to the banks of a dreaming Mekong. I was there for a son of the Shakya, flowering into bright Tagata, breaking the cycles of samsara and return. I watched my wisest daughter journey to your young lands of grapes and olives. You took her beautiful head and claimed her monster, filling your proud bowels with wine and honey. In the primeval eries of sacred Himapan, feathered Kinley devote their lives to song and dance, celebrating the beauty of the timeless and the finite, what might soar and what might remember, what might love and what might wonder. On your modest sea, you plug your ignorant ears, proclaiming them foul screechers reeking of carrion. Arriving on your shores to address these matters, you scream in terror, summoning saints and swords, dismissing me, some rancorous worm of fetid breath. Back home, the king of Akilan rolls his sagacious eyes as you dream of your pale virgins and bestial unicorns. I would teach you of eternity and the laughter of karma, but you'd most likely just mistake it for some horrid inferno. So this year is the 10th anniversary since my collection Demonstra received the 2014 Elgin Award for Book of the Year, and so I'm honored by the Science Fiction and Fantasy Poetry Association and all of our members for having so much faith in this endearing book. And so here's one of the key poems from that collection. also from my very first collection, Professor Bond's. You might be familiar with it, or maybe not. The deep ones. From the sea we come, from the sea we come, our mouths the inns of the world. The salt of the earth, unwelcome at the tables and charts of explorers who expect commodity and blind territory, kingdoms, not wisdom, blood, not heaven's children. We grow with uncertain immortality at the edge, not made for man, bending, curving, humming cosmic, awake and alien. Our mass, a darkened forming mask, a bed of enigma to certain eyes, one with the moon, one with the stars, one with the ash that whispers history, in the same breath as myth and gods whose great backs yawn before us as we change with a growing tongue, growling amid between lands. We built one blade, one leaf, one golden wall of the And since we were talking about zombies a bit earlier in this reading, I'll close this off with Zombuda. Zombuda utters Om, not brains. Is not attached to the body, is not attached to the mind. Decay is one aspect of a cycle of birth, life, death, rebirth, re-death. Never perfumes or gilds the self. Comes back for you, perhaps right behind you. Keep going, he says in his own way. Observes a walking meditation. Does not hurry, or drive cars, or trucks, or tanks, or gunships, or warplanes. Will not touch money or liquor. Is beyond the vices of lust and greed. Focused. Not one possession of a past matters. Old names are useless. Accepts every moment with equanimity. No fear, no pain, no anger, no jealousy. Burn him, cut him, shoot him, flee him, free him. It is the same. The old riddle still applies. Meeting the Buddha on the road. You can say nothing to him. You cannot remain silent. What do? You will destroy him to be comfortable. Some will follow his path, become one with him, laughing at the dancing bones of Zen, the lessons of an uncertain universe. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Brian Talworth, 2022 NecronomiCon Poet Laureate. It has been my honor to serve you in that capacity, to yet again share the joys of weird fiction and poetry with all of you and those beyond. I encourage you all here to look deep within yourselves for the verse that you might share and transform and make the world just a little bit weirder. In some of your cases I see out there, go ahead, make it a lot weirder. With respect and grace, thank you.
Our last poet for the evening is Meg Smith, and I'm sorry I don't know anything about you, Meg.
The Mystery Meg!
Yes, Mystery Meg.
Hi everyone, I am Meg Smith and I live in Lowell, Massachusetts. I'm a poet and a journalist. I'm an Oriental dancer and an events producer. And I'm honored to be here to share my poetry with you all. And I would also like to just pause to give a shout out to the organizers of what really is a multi-tentacled event. I'm sure we'll all agree. And bringing all those tentacles together in some graceful form is no small feat at all. So please, some applause for all organizers, past and present and future, of NecronomiCon. Before I read my poems, and I'm using this mic for the benefit of the amplification, I would actually like to dedicate this reading to a poet who is not here with us and yet is everywhere with us. Her name was Tippi Blevins. She was a very accomplished and celebrated speculative poet for many years, and she passed from this life alone and in silence. So this reading goes out to Tippi Blevins, who never had to raise her voice. I'm going to read principally some poems from two of my most recent poetry books. This one is Straw, Feathers, Bones. I like to write about the natural world and the supernatural world. And so the first poem I would like to read from this book is The Amphibian Legacy. Toads know in their sturdy, pebbled skin and golden eyes. Frogs know in their green translucence. Salamanders know in their shifting of blue skin and soft fingers. Theirs is to kettle everything. The sad discharge of the plant across a bog. Languages that filter through the dust of an old atmosphere. All this they gather in their bellies, in their memory pool, and climb forward, marching forward, to warn, to bless, to bury, and build a new, unbroken place. Thank you. This poem is called Mice of Hallows, and I will just say briefly that Hallows are Halloween. I think perhaps many people know or not, comes from the heritage of my people. I'm a first-generation Irish American, and to me, Halloween was and always has been, like most Irish observances, as much about the creatures around us who are part of us, and mice certainly being amongst them, certainly in my home. So Mice of Hallows. The night would come when children no longer arrived in ghost sheets and paper bag masks. They would run through their thread of time and unravel. But for her, it is enough. As she braids her green-gray hair, a candy bowl will sit full with unwrapped, fun-size bars. She will open them and cut them into small squares with the same sure fingers that have knitted the smallest of caps and scarves for dolls, but no. With napkins spread on the yellow linoleum, she'll lay out these, her offerings, and call them with the word in their own language. They will out from beneath the cabinet, the refrigerator, and the chip in the cellar door, in their great coats, their precise toes, and eyes bearing for her a greatest gift, dark moons of unfailing light. Thank you. I'd like to read the title poem from this book, Straw, Feathers, Bones. A man came to me and vowed to fight for justice, but still demanded the body of rest, before declaring as such null and void, and he died with all the same with his false tongue and withering brain, all for nesting, all good. A skull betrayed its open crown, and the crows rushed in. With all that was scattered over a naked field, and built a good house for eggs, and soon every field was filled with noise of baby crows at dusk. The sky flooded with fire and gave up the night. Thank you. Just one last poem from this book. This poem is called The Bee Mortuary. And bees are, to me, incredibly poetic and also an artistry of the pragmatist, including the way they live their lives the way their lives meet their ends and how they dispose of their dead with dignity. So, the bee mortuary. Pollen falls in a trail of gold, and the sun slips through wings in a dark meditation. Sleek arms ferry sister after sister from a row of husks to the meadow below, clearing away memories of gathering, gliding, bearing the fragrance of desire in bloom. The halls are cleared, the chambers swept, and in soft wax a new stirring, drawn out by fluttering fields. Thank you. So I'd like to just read a couple of poems from my poetry book, Pretty Green Thorns. And before I do that, I did want to quickly mention something about the city I live in, Lowell, Massachusetts. Very much like Providence, it is a haunted city. It is a city filled with darkly magical things. Jack Kerouac was a native son. He was born there, and we have a festival every year in his honor. That's Columbus Day weekend, and if you find your way to Lowell there, I hope you'll join us. Also, this year, we're having a festival in honor of Edgar Allan Poe, and you might see these cards around. And also, I've been using these bookmarks, which you might say is kind of a subliminal form of advertising for my books. Poe actually visits Lowell 3 times, so much like Providence, he leaves his mark there. So October 19th and 20th, we'll be having a festival to celebrate him as well. So I hope that you can join us. So Pretty Green Thorns, as I mentioned, my mom, who just passed away, was born and raised in Ireland, came to this country, became a naturalized citizen. And I have lived not shuffling between 2 cultures, but living in wholly both the Irish and American culture. And so I'd like to read just a couple of poems from that book. This poem is called Samhain Sabbath. Samhain, of course, is the origin of our Halloween. Samhain is not decorative. None of the Irish observances are decorative, although they are sometimes appropriated as such. So I will say, whenever you hear me talk about Samhain or Beltane, I'm not talking about a post-pop culture extraction. I'm talking about the culture that my people frankly lived and died to preserve. So Samhain Sabbath, which is dedicated to my friend Eddie Dyer, who also lives in Lowell. Frank came into Duncan's before midnight. He pulled off the green hood of his sweatshirt and began to tell us stories. Stories of your brothers, their outposts behind meals and around bonfires. He came with a message. Mikey, I hope you're alive and I hope you are well. Mikey lived for the stories. Remember this, Frank said. Hold up that picture of a woman on a mattress. Shake it. You think she'd fall off the bloody thing. Hearing this, our childhoods clawed our bellies. The music rampant, the walls purple, the sun a grease spot in our eyes. What draws us close again takes us to now. The man in the green sequin bow tie in the booth behind us gets up to tell us Irish jokes. But he is soon gone, home to dream of the replaying at the Irish Monument at City Hall. Still, Frank has a message scrawled on the back of a flyer for one of your shows. Mikey, I'm alive and I hope you are well. On the car ride home, the windows frost. The dead's own dead begin, now sober, now wards of the living. That would be you and I singing alive. So the one last poem I would like to read is called Bram Stoker Bequest. Bram Stoker, the author of Dracula, was born in Clontarf, which is a suburb of Dublin. And he was born in 1847, which was the height of what the Irish call An Gort Tamor, the Great Hunger, in which decimated the Irish population through starvation, as well as deportation and forced immigration. So Bram Stoker is both the author of Dracula and a survivor of Angkor Timur, the Great Hunger. And so when I was in Dublin, one of the times I was in Dublin, I like to go looking for some of the houses of Irish writers. And this is from September 2018. This is at one of his homes, and it's called Bram Stoker Bequest. Our blood bloomed from the land of hunger. Our songs rose from the land of winter. Green among your ghosts, your words from your life. I'm standing at your door on Kildare Street. A housing protest is brewing at the street's end. Across the way, Yeats' voice in bright clouds rises from the National Library. Our home is our fire, ghosts. Still, we burn and they burn, and our songs cover the clouds of low-lying hills. Thank you so much for listening. Again, I'm Meg Smith, and I've been reading to you from my most recent poetry books, Straw, Feathers, Bones, and Green Thorns, which are both available at the New England Horror Writers table, and I do have some if you would like one for me personally. Thank you again so much for listening, and it's been a pleasure also to listen and be amongst the other great poets. Have a wonderful time at the rest of NecronomiCon, however long you stay, and may we all meet safely again in our travels. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Meg. That was a wonderful way to end.